What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scene Snobs podcast. I'm your host, Mick Manhattan, the Scene Snob himself, and it is our Christmas/holiday episode, and that's why I'm wearing this goofy hat. But, I'm back at it again, and as promised, with a new episode. And I kind of wanted to be not be in a more festive mood, but, Christmas next week, and there's probably not going to be an episode. I wanted to take this time to kind of touch down on a few things that I really enjoyed in the past week and get in tune with my Christmas feelings, if I will. So, with that being said, let's get started. And what I want to start with is the season finale episode of Watchmen. Now, I have been watching and reviewing Watchmen on every episode of the Scene Snob podcast, and this is the last one. So, I got to do a quick review. So, this episode found us, we just had found out that Abdul Mateen 2, who plays Cal on the show, which is Angela, who's played by Regina King, her husband. So, and we find out that he's Dr. Manhattan. Now, we got the whole backstory in the episode before, and we found out 2 episodes ago, and then the episode before we got the whole backstory, their whole backstory, and then his abduction by the 7th Cavalry. So, I just wanted to say this was a really good episode. It was a fantastic way to end this. And the series, I'll say so far, because I don't think it's been renewed for a second season yet. And if they don't come back, which I don't think they have to, this was a really good limited series. Very solid in every way. Tied everything up and did leave it open for a second season, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. That's okay. So, we get Sister Knight now desperately seeking Dr. Manhattan. He is trapped in this cube of, it's basically made out of watch batteries, I guess, so it kind of can seal him in. And the senator is trying to steal his power. They found a way for him to steal the power. But now we're found out that Lady True also wants to do the same thing, and she wants to steal his power. One wants to do it to correct what he thinks is wrong with the world, and one wants to do it because she feels like she needs to save the world, and she needs that power to do it. Makes sense. It's a very basic premise, and I dug every minute of it. The whole episode just played out beautifully. The music was amazing. This whole season, the music was amazing. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, knock it out of the park at everything they do. But especially what they did on the show was just fantastic. So, we got all that. Unfortunately, Dr. Manhattan dies in the episode. We got Ozymandias back. We got his, how he came back and the whole backstory there. I don't want to give too much away. I just want to kind of gush over how I felt about the episode, and that is, it was a perfect ending to this whole series, and it's so beautiful, and to go from such a topical show to turn into such a beautiful love story was truly amazing. But the graphic novel was the same way, and Jean Smart was perfect as Laurie Blake. And, Jeremy Irons, of course, is perfect in everything he does, but coming on as Adrian Veidt, Ozymandias was perfect. Just all around, the show was fantastic. And to get that from the creators of Lost, where, I was so embedded in that show, and then in the end, it kind of really let me down. But we got just a fantastic, you could tell they're fans of Alan Moore's work, and they did right by it, and they created a perfect continuation. So I was very happy with it. And if you haven't checked out the show so far, now that it's over, I suggest going and binging. If you are a fan of the graphic novel, especially. If you are not, I would check out the graphic novel too. It's fantastic. So, with that being said, we've got a ton of new trailers this week that were just fantastic. We got a new Ip Man 4 trailer, which comes out next month, and I can't wait to see it. Film Club is showing it here at the Alamo Drafthouse, and I will be there because... And this will be the first one that I see in theaters, which I'm excited for. because all the other three I did not see them in theaters. I saw them when they came out streaming, and it's one of my favorite series. The first three movies are fantastic, and none of them, like the first movie, of course, is the absolute best in my opinion. It's a haunting story and just terrific. It really is. And because they didn't know if they'd make more, it's perfect open and closed ending. But then they went on and they made 2 and 3 and now 4, and I just cannot wait for it. So we got that. We got a trailer for Red Sun, which is the Superman story. It's the what if Superman had crash landed in Russia, which is a comic book. I got it was a one-off novel. I got there, and it was really good. It was a really good novel because they did one True Brit too. I have that over there as well. Where what if he crashed in the UK? And that one's not as good as Red Sun. Red Sun really kind of hits home. It's that alternative of he is America's hero. That's what we've always known him as, true justice in the American way. And then, but what if he had landed in Russia? And he's still a good man. He's not. He's looked at from Americans, in the Cold War era, as a villain. But he's still a good man, and he's still trying to save the world. But he has different ideals. It's a very good read. So if you haven't read it, I would definitely check it out. And it looks like it's going to be a pretty cool animated movie that they made. We have Tenet, which is Christopher Nolan's next movie. Very excited for that. It stars John David Washington, who is Denzel's son. And I hate having to do that, but I mean, I know a lot of people, whenever I explain it, or I say his name, like I was a big fan of Ballers, and he was fantastic in BlacKkKlansman. He is going to be just as big as his father, in my opinion. He's just as good as an actor. And he's showing that more and more with everything he does. And he's the star of this movie with Robert Pattinson. And what it looks like is there's some kind of hitmen or mercenaries or something. They may even be government, CIA, and their deaths, they're taken hostage, or he's taken hostage, I should say. And he's threatened. He's threatened with death or give up the people he's working with. And he chooses to die, but it's all a exercise to see if he's trustworthy. And then once he enters this world that's very, I don't want to say supernatural, but it's very mind-bendy. And it's kind of a shadow government organization that, he is now involved with. And he's just trying to kind of make sense of it. So there's not much about the plot. I mean, as we know, when it comes to Christopher Nolan movies, we don't know much about the plot until we get there. But I can't wait. It's going to be fantastic. We have The Quiet Place 2 teaser trailer came out. I will definitely see this movie. I just don't know that I needed it. The first one's a really powerful movie, especially that opening. And John Krasinski did a great job, and you had this family unit, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen the first one, when he goes in the first one, yes, there's still more story to tell, especially with how it ended and what the reveal was. But I was just like, when I watched this, I realized, I'm like, what more do I need to see out of this? I was like, you left so much to the imagination. What more do I need to see? Now, with that being said, I will see it. But I am wondering, like, what more is out there in that universe that I need to see. I feel like the first movie really tied things up for me. We have Buffaloed, which it looks like, from what I gathered, it's a girl. She's kind of a hustler. She gets arrested. She goes to jail for a while, and when she gets out, she gets into, I want to say, like debt collecting, but like loan sharking, I should say. And she kind of creates her own business in doing that because she finds she's very successful at it. And she's at odds with another loan shark that wants to take out her business. And it looks funny, it looks different, and it looks interesting. But I will reserve my review, of course. Well, like anything, you should only reserve your review for when you see the movie. Or just, but yeah, really, like, you shouldn't review anything unless you see it. Look who I'm talking to. You guys know. So I will check it out because it does look interesting. But I'm not really. The story hasn't drawn me in yet. But there's a spark there. Then we have Come to Daddy, which is Elijah Wood movie. I did not see if it was his company that was putting it out. But he is a star of the movie. It looks really interesting. It looks like it's a guy gets a letter from his dad, his estranged father, to come visit him, and his dad lives in like this house by this lake, kind of a secluded area. And he goes out and they're kind of connecting and everything's going well, and then like things start to turn. The father starts to act like a little more eccentric. He becomes threatening, things like that, and the son is kind of just trying to piece everything together and see what's going on. It looks like a really good thriller. Elijah Wood really doesn't do you wrong. Like, it seems like when he picks a movie, it's interesting. In the very least, you're going to get an interesting movie. So I am, because it even has me intrigued. I want to know what's going on with the father. But so that's another one I saw. Definitely check out. The Woman in the Window was an Amy Adams movie. This also looks interesting. Looks kind of it basically is. She's an agoraphobic. She's stuck in she kind of is just stuck in this like brownstone house in New York City, and she starts watching her neighbors, and more she starts seeing things. And the turn in the trailer for me was she has drinks with Julianne Moore and becomes friendly with her, and like they start to become more and more friendly. And then she's looking out her window and she sees, because that Julianne Moore is the neighbor that lives across the street, and she sees that the husband is played by Gary Oldman, fights with her, and then like something violent happens, so she calls the cops, and then they come out and it's Jennifer Jason Leigh comes out and says, "I'm his wife. We've never met." Blah blah blah. And so it's odd. Like, I mean, you've seen, it's kind of like a thriller that we've seen, like Girl on the Train or Gone Girl, things like that it seems interesting, but I don't know that I'll be checking it out in theaters, but it seems interesting enough to kind of see what's going on. With Mrs. Scene Snob, I'm pretty sure I will see it. And then, the big one, Top Gun 2. We got a full trailer, and who knows what's going on there. So, to lay it out, I never minded Top Gun. I liked Top Gun. I like Top Gun, I should say. It is an 80s classic, absolutely. Now, is it one of my go-tos? No. But if it's on TV, I'll watch it. If there's nothing else that I want to watch on. But I do, it's quotable. I like it. But it was never anything I really needed more from. That's just kind of how I felt about Top Gun. So when I heard they were doing a sequel a couple of years ago, like, kind of planning for it, and then I had heard that it was going to be Maverick coming back to teach at Top Gun. And I was like, alright, I mean, I get it. And they're making sequels or reboots of everything. Yeah, you could do that. But it looks like Miles Teller, who is a fine actor. But I don't know. He's never been one of my type of actors that I want to go and watch. So when I saw he was in the movie, it kind of turned me off. And already I'm coming into it like, I don't know if I needed a sequel to Top Gun. It does look awesome. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you have dogfights, you have jets doing things that I never knew they could do, and Maverick is back. So let's see where it goes. I think I'll check this one out. It's another one. Like, I make sure to go see the new Mission. Every time there's a new Mission Impossible, I make sure to go see it in theaters. I love the Mission Impossible movies. Every single one of them. They're absolutely perfect, and they hold up, in my opinion. I actually will go see them more. I'm more in tune to go see them than I am a new James Bond movie. I have seen every Daniel Craig, and I will continue. But like Pierce Brosnan, I didn't see all of them in theaters. Before that, I was like too young, but and I wound up seeing all the James Bonds through the years. But I am a Mission Impossible guy. I love it. I think it's great. I think once they started putting the team together and was it Ghost Protocol, it felt right. Well, it's actually the third one that they more or less put the team together, but because the old TV show was a team, it wasn't one man doing this, so it felt good. And the movies since having these teams felt right. So I will always go see a Mission Impossible movie. That doesn't mean I will always go see a Tom Cruise movie. Edge of Tomorrow was fantastic. There's some, but there's some that is just like, I don't care. I didn't need Top Gun 2. But I'll check it out when it comes out streaming, I'm sure. Now, to get to probably the most interesting trailer. I know I'm talking a lot about trailers, but there's so many that came out and they're so interesting. And I just like to touch down on everything if I can. Antlers. I think it's a Guillermo del Toro movie. I'm not sure if he's producing or he's directed too. I think he directed. And we get a little bit more in this trailer of what it's about. Kerry Russell plays a teacher, and there's a young boy, and you can see he's kind of going out and he's killing things, bringing it back, and he's feeding something in his attic. And this kid is just looks like the life is being drained out of him because he's cleaning up after the thing. So, my immediate, in the last trailer, reaction was, maybe his dad or his mom or whatever has turned into a monster and uses him to go and get him to feed him, and he feels the responsibility because it's his parent or whatever. And that may still be the case, but there were whisperings in this trailer of a Wendigo. So that's very cool. With the exception of Wendigo, which came out years ago, which is actually not a bad little straight to video on horror movie. Came out in the early 2000s. It was pretty good, and it was shot pretty well. I remember really enjoying that. I'd have to check it out again, but I remember really liking it. So, to watch that, we have Kerry Russell, Jesse Plemons is in it, a few others, and we just got some really cool shots in it. And again, even if it's produced just by Del Toro, it's going to be a good movie. And I'm anxious to see another Wendigo movie. I want to compile a list of good Wendigo movies shows, because the only two I have now is that straight to video, which I remember liking, which I should probably revisit before I kind of put it out there, but it was called Wendigo, and then there was an episode on the first season of Supernatural where they go out to the woods and to find hikers that got lost, and they find themselves up against the Wendigo, and it was a really solid episode. And I think that was the third or fourth episode of that series, and that was the one that kind of locked me in. I was there once I saw that episode, because the first few episodes were good, but it was I always give every new show that I'm interested in three episodes. If you don't have me locked in by 3 episodes, I'm out. I just don't care. That show, I think it was the third episode too, was the Wendigo, and that was the one that really locked me in. It was alright, first 2 episodes are good. This third one was this is going places. And of course, 15 years later, and they have to end the show. It's not even a show that's we need to cancel this, its ratings are low. No, they've had spectacular ratings all this time. They decided to end the show so they can go on and do different things. So, Antlers, that's a movie. It's a Wendigo movie, it seems. It's coming out, and I can't wait for it. So go check out all these trailers. Let me know what you think. But with Antlers, I kind of want to get into something a little more festive. And bear with me, because this might be a little long, but it comes around. So, I was watching Rudolph the other day with my kids. Now, anybody who's watched Rudolph fully understands how truly horrifying living in that world is, and how it makes no sense by the end of it. So we have, of course, we know with Rudolph, I'm not going to tell the whole story again. Just listen to the song and you get the story. and I don't have the money to pay for the song, so I will just go along with talking about the special. From the moment Rudolph is born, and his red nose is going, his father is a dick to him. Santa walks in and makes fun of this baby, not a child, which is still horrible in its own right. He makes fun of a baby and basically says this baby, you need to get this baby under control. Like, this is a hideousness I can't even stand to look at. And it was just a red nose. So they're accepting because he's part of the family. I think he's Donner's kid. And Donner is a horrible father in this. So now we have Rudolph, poor little Rudolph, running around. He's got a horrible father who's kind of a dick to the mom, too. And so, she never speaks up. And she's not defending Rudolph. Then you have Rudolph having to hide his nose because Santa and Donner don't like it. So there's so many correlations you can make. And in most recent years, we've seen many of them. Now, this is the most horrible Santa iteration of Santa I've ever seen. He is a truly terrible human being. He is a monster. Krampus, compared to this Santa in this special, is like a godsend. And now, watching this and seeing how Santa does not care about his job, Santa does not care about the kids, Santa does not care about his elves, he does not care about his reindeer, he didn't care about anything. And I don't want to go on a tangent just about Santa because it's everything. Like, there's an island of toys that Santa straight up rejected because they have problems. That's messed up. These are living sentient beings. Come on, in that special. So, it is truly horrible, that whole special. And when my kids watched it, I watched it with kind of eyes of, yeah, that's life. Now I am mentioning how horrible it is because as a dad, your perspective changes on things. Once you have kids, your perspective on almost everything changes. Like, it doesn't matter how you were treated when you were younger. You could have been a golden god. You could have been a loser. I was in the loser bracket growing up. And I'll get to that in a minute. So, when my kids watch it now, with this day and age's way of thinking, now, most young people today, I'm not saying that they don't run into hardships, but or there's no bullying or anything like that. Of course there is. Of course it exists. It's disgusting. And again, as a parent, your perspective being from having been young and being bullied to watching a world where other kids are being bullied and fearing that my kids may be bullied one day is very different. Because you see it from different eyes. And I think this is where it's kind of lost on the young versus the old, because once your perspective changes on that, you kind of become part of the old. And the young are looking at, and the young have it where it's a lot less happening these days. Now, I'm not saying bullying doesn't happen. It happens online more often than anything, which is completely different from how it happened with me. But there's a different outlook, I think, today. So when people watch Rudolph, they're saying, well, that's terrible. How could it be like that? Whereas somebody my age or older is looking at that and saying, man, I'm glad it's not like that today. And it's just a matter of perspective. It's very weird in the sense of how it works. See, when we were younger, like now, all the things that we love, us geeks love, and I thank God, like, my kids can read comic books and my kids can wear superhero shirts or gamer shirts or things like that and go to school and it's widely accepted. I thank God that my kids can be like, I can't wait to see Star Wars on the big screen. And the other kids are like, yeah, me too, or Avengers or whatever else. When I was a kid, you could not do that. And I was a film geek kid. I was running around with my friends with cameras and trying to film things. But, we read our comic books. We read our fantasy stuff. We were all about it. And, like, we wore Ghostbuster shirts. We wore, superhero shirts, stuff like that. Like, it was our world. It's what made us feel special in a world that rejected us constantly every day. So it's getting a little hot in here, so I'm going to take the hat off. But so that this stuff was the stuff that, like, my geek collection on my walls, things like that, is stuff I loved, you know. And I remember a lot of kids I went to school with never really having seen Star Wars, or maybe they had when they were kids, but they looked at it as kids' movies. And there was, with that, like, I remember one of my friends in school, I forget his name. Like, that's how unimportant these people are in your life when you get older. You don't even remember their names. And I hope if that helps anybody who's being bullied, they hear that and maybe think, like, someday it will get better. I hope you can take it that way. And I hope you understand that my message here is to say it's always better to keep going on. You know, I'm not saying that you can't let things get to you. I'm not saying it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be all of those things. It's okay to feel any emotion. But don't let it take away from who you are. And never stop being who you are. Never stop loving what you love. I never have. You know, I have the TARDIS tattooed on my arm, Star Wars tattooed on my arm, Back to the Future. Like, I love this stuff. This means something to me. I have Jason Voorhees tattooed on my leg. You know, and but back then, like, adults, like, if you loved horror movies, adults thought you were a Satanist. They really did. They thought that you loved and worshiped Satan. I went to a Catholic school where it was even worse. The teachers really thought there was something mentally wrong with you. If you love comic books, you were a baby and a geek, and really just trashed for it. Ripped. I've had countless comic books ripped up in my face. Movies, like if I would talk about Star Wars or I would talk about anything, really. Anything that wasn't, I guess, what the norm was at the time. I don't even know what the norm for other kids was. You know, if I talked about horror movies, like, everybody just thought you were weird. And you always kind of felt alone. Like, I had my friends, but they felt alone too. And, like, sometimes you get beat up or you get your stuff ripped up or whatever. And you just felt so alone. You felt like, there were a few times, like, reduced to tears, like, stuff like that. I just never understood why I couldn't love what I wanted to love. And, in my things, the things I really cared about. And why people couldn't accept that, And as I got older, I think because you're stuck in a friend group, like, it's almost like they're in your class, they're your friends. You gotta kind of like what they like. Like, I had to like pop music, but I liked metal. I liked, my rock. I liked the Ozzy, things like that. Like, but you can never say it. I also liked hip hop. I grew up in the ghetto. Like, that was a big thing for me. But even then, you couldn't really say it. Like, it's, if it wasn't on the top pop, even the hip hop, like, it wasn't on the top pop channels on radio, like, you don't know what you're talking about, and you're a geek, blah blah blah, whatever. So I think the reason I'm bringing this up, because, like, talking about Rudolph and how terrible it was. Rudolph back then, when we watched it, kind of helped you cope. And the reason was, when we watched it back then, it wasn't like, this is terrible, this is terrible. This was like, this is the norm. This is how we all feel every year. Every day, not just at Christmas, every day, all throughout the year. Everyone feels like they're against us. But then you're going to find those people who aren't against you, and they like the things you like, or they like you for what you like. Like, my best friend in the world, still to this day, is my buddy Lenny. And he loved all the same things. He was a film geek too. He was a horror movie geek. We always shared that stuff, comic books, things. Like, we were always into it, and he never judged me in any way, shape, or form for what I loved, and I never judged him for what he loved. Like, we just enjoyed it. We worked at video stores together, sometimes separately, like different stores, movie theaters, things like that. So, we did stuff that we really enjoyed, and the reason this is coming up for me is not just with the Rudolph, is because, like, when people watch Rudolph now, they're like, that is terrible. I can't believe they would make something like this. It is, how could somebody create something that is so vile? It was how it was. It spoke to people at that time, and I think that's kind of the message I want to get across is, back then, this is how we were. So, like, when you see older people, like, me, I'm closer to 40, maybe somebody in their 20s might look at me and be like, well, what do you know? Like, I know a lot. I know a lot about being different, and a lot about having to hide parts of yourself, just because you didn't want to get beat up that day. Because you didn't want to shine, and somebody would look at you the wrong way. And, like, I'm a big guy now. But when I was a slender little, nothing, and got knocked down more than I got to knock people down. And as I grew bigger and taller and everything else and stronger, I was able to have the confidence it afforded me the confidence, I should say, to outwardly speak out about what I like and stuff like that. But even like when my brother, who was never like this, introduces me, he's just like, oh, he's into all that geek stuff. And he kind of accepted it. I love my brother. It's his way of connecting with it. He doesn't understand it, so he's trying to connect with it. And I think there are more and more people now. Like, I see people who beat me up in high school or in grammar school, and, through Facebook or whatever, like, I'm not really friends with them, but I see them connecting, like, taking their kids to Star Wars and raving about, oh, I can't wait, I've always been a fan, or Marvel movies or whatever else. I'm like, you used to rip up my comic books whenever I had them with me, or you knocked me down because I was a Star Wars fan, and talking about Star Wars, and call me a geek, or call me a loser, or call me way more vile things, because that's just how it was back then. And vile things are said now, but and I don't want to seem out of touch. I don't want to seem like bullying doesn't exist, because it does. But like all these things that we used to get really trashed for are more widely accepted now. And that's kind of my point. Is like, I'm glad to see that turn has happened, and that people can enjoy these things openly. My boys can go out and enjoy comic books and things like that, and talking about them openly, without fear of them getting beat up, because it was a real fear. So another point I want to make kind of brings it around to the Christmas aspect. I went to a Christmas party the other day, and it was a DVD exchange, not Secret Santa, Yankee exchange, where you can steal the gifts and such. And it was a DVD exchange. Now, this was with the Psycho Cinema group that I often go see movies with. And I'd say there's about 40 people there. And there was a lot of social awkwardness in the room. Like, we were all sitting there waiting for it to start. And there's 40 people in this room, and everybody's really quiet. Now, I used to be very quiet. I used to not want to project myself or put myself out there for fear of being seen and for fear of that having a negative effect. So, but again, as I got bigger and I got, and again, like, I got taller and bigger and stronger, I kind of realized other friends of mine aren't getting bigger. They aren't getting stronger. And they're still getting picked on. So, years ago, I decided I am going to speak out more. I'm going to force myself to. Even though I was socially awkward and it was crippling at times to have to do it, I was like, somebody has to do it. And if I'm big enough now, where the other person who's a bully is usually a scared little turd and they'll run away every time, I wanted to do that. I wanted to be a type of force for good, like, leave him alone or leave her alone. Let them love what they love. So, because of that, that has helped me. And again, it was like a fake until you make it, and I just kept doing it and kept doing it. And it has served me greatly through the years to do that. Now, I'm not saying everybody should learn how to do this or anything like that. I'm just saying this is my story. This is how I did it. And it took a long time to really get myself fully out there, to the point where I am at a point where I am confident and comfortable now, and I don't mind speaking up if I need to. And there were many things that helped me along the way. Acting, I forced myself to take acting classes to learn how to do that and project. Doing open mic stand-up, things like that. Pushing myself out there to do these things. Improv, things like that. Nothing major, but just I put myself out there, and I think that's what helped me get there and being able to project. But anyway, I'm standing in this Christmas party and nobody's talking. It's very, I don't want to say awkward. I'm not saying people were awkward, but I'm saying it was an awkward vibe. It was a familiar awkward vibe. As in, I remember what it was like to be in a room filled with people and you're not too sure who they are and you don't put yourself out there. So, and it's geeks. That's what we are. That's what we all were in that room. We're geeks. Proudly geeks. We love what we love. That's what it's about. And I knew standing in that room, I'm like, well, this is important. It's great to be in a room filled with people that like the same things you like. Why aren't you talking to them? And I'm telling myself this. I'm like, why aren't we sharing? Why aren't we out there? So, I made some jokes about different things going on, and I got a few people to laugh, and I talked to a few people, and I think, and then the DVD exchange started, and kind of like became a little bit happier. I'm not saying that I made it happier in any way or anything like that, or I had any force in that. I'm just saying, I'm glad I spoke up. And if you're in a room filled with geeks, and these were older geeks too, like some young, some older. So, and I could tell a lot of them understood what I had just said. They grew up the same way. They grew up picked on. They grew up kind of having to hide your love for things, your geekness, things like that, because of the negative impact it could have on you. But now it's 2019, we're going on 2020, and we're sitting in a room. Now these are people I sit in a room with almost once a week, and we watch movies we love, and we're on the same chat rooms, and we talk, and I should say groups and stuff, and we talk, and we just have a good time. We love what we love, and we can openly do it. And I think that's what I'm most happy about for Christmas. And we're going into a new world where people are accepted more. Now I know there's a lot of negative stuff out there, and I know there's a lot of people who don't want to accept you. But more and more I'm seeing changes, and I think with this year and stuff like that, the most thankful I am, like the Me Too movement. 30 years ago, no way could you ever feel that way. Like, my mother was she's been attacked, and there was abuse. I've had abuse in my life, and she did, and things like that. And you couldn't speak up. And you watch that, and we grew up in a time where you can't speak up, you can't talk about those things, and again with the bullying and stuff like that. Grew up in times where even if you did complain about bullying, nobody really took you seriously. It was just well, you just got to change your ways. How is that an answer? How is that an answer to anything? But we're in a world now where people do seem to care, and I kind of want to urge that. There are a lot of people who want to see things change. The Me Too movement is huge, and it's ending things. It's my wife, who is a survivor. She's seeing change. We're older, but we're seeing change in this world, and that will affect our sons, make them hopefully better men. We are trying to do that every day and train and teach them how to be better men. But society plays a hand in that too, and I think growing up in a good society that cares means something. I saw a lot of people complain, and it was older people, like Greta Thunberg. Oh yeah, what has she done? She just gets frustrated and starts screaming at older people and blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, why not? Why not? She should be. She should be a 16-year-old screaming at people, saying, "You're supposed to leave a better world for me, just like I'm supposed to leave a better world for my children in the future." And we're not. The old guard isn't doing it. They're not doing their job, and they're expecting us to pick up the bill. And even younger to pick up the bill, and it's just not right. And I feel like I'm going all over the place, but it does mean something. It means that we are seeing change. She's Time Person of the Year, a 16-year-old girl, Time Person of the Year. You weren't going to see that 40 years ago, and it means something now. We are seeing change. It's a slow process, but we're seeing more change now than ever before. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And that's what I love about this. And being at that Christmas party the other day reminded me that there's a whole group out there that suffered in silence and felt alone, and we've lost many, our numbers, and it just, and I always kind of lumped in everybody, because back then it didn't matter, it didn't matter to us if you were gay, straight, black, white, Hispanic, whatever. When you loved the same things, you wanted to be friends with that person. It didn't matter what they were, because you had a common bond, like filmmaking, things like that. You didn't care what color the person standing next to you was, if they had the same passion as you. And we all had to hide that passion from one another. And I feel like maybe I missed out on some really good people. And that's why, when I was at the party, and I was like, I need to speak up. I need to make jokes. I need to make people laugh so I can connect with people. And I had connected with people. And, hopefully have created friendships. But that's why it was important to speak up and connect with these people who love the same things you do. Because you might be helping them as much as they're helping you. And I don't want to dwell too bad on it, but when I was watching Rudolph the other day and seeing how horrible it was, and then thinking about the perspective of when people watch it now, younger people watch it now, and they say, this is horrible, how can anybody have ever written this? And then people my age and older look at it who suffered and were on the side of Rudolph, look at it and they're saying, this helped us cope, knowing that he had friends who cared about him. Because remember, he came back to his family. His family, they went out looking for him. But he came back to his family. They never really found him. And then he had to go and save them to be accepted. He had to do something to be accepted. But not by his friends. His friends just cared about him for who he was. And he cared about them for who he was. And that's what we need to do. He needed to put himself out there and get away from all the vile, negative stuff that he was enduring. And go out there and meet people who really cared. So, if I can leave you with that, go out there, try and meet new people. Enter 2020 with a new scope, a new view on how you want to do things, and I think you'll be a lot happier. And just let's try and change things, continuing to change things. And really push for a better world in all fronts, more accepting and loving world. But let's also be accepting of our neighbor. Whether they have different views from you or not, try and talk to them. We're all human, and you never know who needs you or who you'll need, and you'll never find out by being closed off. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you for watching. This is my Christmas episode of the Scene Snobs podcast, and I'm going to leave you with one more movie, for Christmas movie to watch. That it was a Christmas horror movie is what I was going with. I was putting it out there, and I didn't have one prepared. I will say this: go out and check out the Rise of Skywalker. I saw it last night. Check out my video on thescenesnobs.com. or on the YouTube channel. Give us a like and subscribe. But my recommendation is Wendigo. Go check it out. I really enjoyed it. Or you can also check out Wind Chill, which is an early Emily Blunt movie, which was really good. So those are my recommendations. With that, check us out on Instagram and Twitter at the Scene Snob. Remember, thescenesnobs.com is where we have all our stuff, and you can go check that out. Or check out the Scene Snobs page on Facebook and connect and meet a lot of really good people. Okay? So, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, everything. Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year, all around. Everything. I want everybody to be happy and enjoying the holidays. If you are not, please, if something is depressing you or whatever, at this moment, I get it. I have been there myself. And I will just say this, it will get better. I love you. Thank you for watching. and let's go into the new year and try and change things up, like for the better. Okay? Take care. Again, happy holidays. Love you guys. Feliz Navidad.